and welcome to this week's episode of the Uncrowned Diaries. Today I wanted to talk about humility. Is it vanity or is it a voice? So what do I mean by this? When you get to pageants, there's a fine line between being able to let a judge know who you are, what you stand for, and create an impression in their mind in a very short period of time, at the same time when 60 or 70 other girls are trying to do the exact same thing. So a lot of times we've always been taught, temper yourself, don't try to show off, don't be humble. However, when there's 60 or 70 girls all trying to vie for the judge's attention, all trying to create an impression, an unforgettable impression in the judges' minds, you need to speak up. You need to be more vocal about the things that you do. It's not what you're talking about, but how you say it that can either come off as being authentic and humble versus, just listing off your accolades. So you don't want to be someone who's just listing off all your accomplishments. You want to connect with the judges. You want to tell them why you did what you did, but you do want to tell them what you did. That's my point. So don't sit back and say, I didn't really talk about how I did this and the other because I didn't want them to think like I'm showing off or, I'm boasting about myself. You do need to share with them what your accomplishments are. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why you're there. You're asking to be the representative of your country. You're asking them to pick you as the person who's going to now be the role model for other young girls. And so you have to tell them what you stand for. You have to tell them why you should be picked over the other girls. So don't hold back. Don't hold back in what you say, but certainly practice how you're going to tell them this, why you did those things, what about it was important. So you don't go in and say, I won the award for such and such thing. That's just a statement. That's not something they connect with. But if you say to them, this cause was really important to me for this reason, and because of that I ended up doing this work, and as a result of my efforts I received this award, that's different. Okay, now you've connected with the judges. You've told them about your value system. You've told them how you worked towards something that you were passionate about, and as a result of your passion and your efforts, now you were given this award. Okay, the only times you don't say things like that is if you won the Nobel Peace Prize. Then you just be like, I won the Nobel Peace Prize. Because we all know that if you won the Nobel Peace Prize, well, it's pretty commendable and you don't have to talk about the whys and the hows. Everyone knows why you won that prize. But for most part, if you're listing off your credentials or you're listing off your accomplishments, put the why piece in there. And I think that's how you don't come off as showing off or being boastful. That's how you connect with the judges and say, well, I did receive this, or I did my degree in that, but the reason why I did it was blah, blah, and blah. I have my doctorate is one thing. I have my doctorate in so-and-so thing because from a young age, these were the things that were important to me. This experience happened to me. This set me on this path. And then I went on to do this so that I could do that, right? So when you present it in that way, it comes off differently, and then it won't come off like you're showing off. It'll come off like you have a story to tell and you're carrying the judge on that journey. You're carrying them through the storytelling, and you won't feel as if you're being boastful. So is it vanity? No, it's not vanity. It's your way of putting your best foot forward in front of the judges so that they know who you are, what you are in a very short period of time, and you're able to distinguish yourself from the next candidate. Remember, there'll be more than one of you who cares about poverty, who cares about education, who is a mother, who is an immigrant, who is someone who comes from a diverse background, who is someone who had challenges growing up, who has come from abuse, who has come from foster homes, who has come from whatever your story is to tell. There is someone else who has a similar, not your lived experience, but has a similar story to tell. How do you set yourself apart from that person? If education matters to you, well, education matters to a lot of people. What about your story do you want the judges to know? If you were someone who had lots of challenges growing up, if you came from a broken home, if you were put through the foster system, that's okay. How did you come out of that? What was your story to tell, and how do you bring that story around to who you are right now? That's what you want to share with the judges, not this was my reality. This was your reality, and what did you do with it? Okay, so for me personally, this is something that I'm crafting right now as well. So as I talk to you about this, it's not like I have it all in the bag and I've sorted it out. No, I'm still refining. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still putting the pieces together in 30 seconds, in 60 seconds, and in 3 minutes, depending on how long I have to tell the story as well. That part's important too. You know, sometimes we have a beautiful story to tell, but we don't have enough time to tell it. Keep that in mind. You need to have your 30-second story, you need to have your 1-minute story, and you have to have your 3-minute story. And you don't need a longer story than that. Because if you are telling a longer story than that, you're probably telling it in a very social circumstance and probably will be forgotten. At least not for the pageant, right? It's not going to come through for the pageant. So when you're talking specifically about the pageant, remember, tell your story, make 3 versions of it. It still needs to cover the important points. It still needs to have your why in there, but you need to have different versions of your story. So for me, for my example, I am someone who came from war. As a child, I went through war, and that shaped a lot of who I was as a person. But because I went through that experience, it taught me a lot about it taught me a lot about justice. It taught me a lot about being there for other individuals. It taught me about helplessness. It taught me about a whole lot of things. And it also grew me far beyond my years. From that grew my need to want to give back to communities, to want to volunteer, to want to seek justice for those who weren't able to do that for themselves. And that was the seeds that were set in me that then brought me to this point in my journey where I do a lot of humanitarian work, where I work in wellness, where I work in mental health. So that's my story to tell, and I tell it in that way. So you have to create that for yourself. You have to craft that story, and you have to do it in a way that is emotional, that you connect with other people. Because remember this, what is important to you may not be important to a judge. Even now, my year 2025, we have partnered with Canadian Mental Health. Okay, this is the organization that all the girls are fundraising for. Now, when we get in front of a judge and we talk about it, maybe the judge that's picked doesn't really care that much about mental health. Maybe they're really, really passionate about prostate cancer because maybe a family member died. Maybe they're really passionate about poverty because they suffered greatly when they were younger. We don't know what their lived experience is, but we do know this much. People connect on emotion. People don't just connect on cerebral topics. So don't just go in saying, I'm going to talk about mental health or whatever the cause is, but I'm not going to go in and say, I'm going to talk about mental health and just expect the person sitting across from me believes and is as passionate about the subject as I am. No, that would be a mistake. What you do want to do is you want to connect with them emotionally. Have you ever felt helpless? Have you ever felt that you wanted to do something more for a cause? That person's going to say, yeah. Have you ever felt like your voice was never heard? Yeah. These are universal things that anyone can connect on. Now, why was their voice not heard? Maybe it had to do with something else, not mental health. Why did they feel powerless? Maybe it had to do with something else, not social justice. But once you connect emotionally with someone, once you can find a shared feeling, then where that feeling comes from and why that person has that feeling is no longer relevant, because that's still my feeling and I got it from here, and that's their feeling, but they got it from there. And now it doesn't matter where you got it from, you still share the same feeling. You've connected with the individual, and that is the most important thing. Okay, so for me personally, that's my strategy. It's my way of connecting with individuals, is that, and it wasn't always, by the way. Once upon a time, I used to go in and be like, if I find this cause important, everyone needs to find this cause important. And it was preposterous that no one would care about starving children in Gaza, or someone would not care about AIDS, or someone would not care about poverty, or someone would not care about whatever the cause was that I thought was important, right? But people don't really have your lived experience. People don't connect with things that they have not personally gone through, because they don't know what that is, right? So they're not to be faulted for it, but you do need to find a way to get them passionate about what you're trying to say. And the best way to do that is connect emotionally with someone, meet them on the same playing field. So I hope that helps when you're sharing who you are as a person. You want to speak to your accolades, but the vanity comes out only if you are listing off accomplishments as opposed to sharing your why behind them. So it's your accomplishments. You should be proud of them, but you should share it in a way that the other person can connect and care about them as well.